Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Sundays. My name is Everett Thiemer. Dave took the spaceship to Toronto for the weekend, so we've hot-wired a Cadillac hearse, and we're going to take it for a drive through the weird and haunting tales. We welcome to tonight's show Kingdom of Night Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping the Spaced Out Radio store, reading up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Mighty Moose Beard Oil Company. It's 100% Canadian and 100% natural. They're taking care of beards around the world. Visit MightyMooseBeard.com and use promo code SOR2019 today. Tonight we are joined by Cindy Parmiter. Cindy is an accomplished author, having written books on topics ranging from true tales of the paranormal to urban legends to things like sleep paralysis and serial killers. Cindy's family history is steeped in folklore and true paranormal encounters, fueling her desire to inform the world of the things we don't always see. Her works have been featured on the web series Weird Darkness, as well as many other media outlets. Cindy, thanks so much for being here. This is going to be a great way to kick off the fall and Halloween season.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So tell me, you're relatively new to writing. What fueled your desire to get into not just paranormal writing, but writing in general?
I kind of was pushed into it a little bit by my husband, because I always have stories to tell, and I'd already told him a lot of my family stories, and he's like, you should write this down. And I'm like, I've never written, but it came really naturally to me. I grew up, especially my mother's family, were always talking about paranormal things. They didn't call it that. It was, this person had a haunted house. My grandmother, I know, had a haunted house. And they just talked about it. It was so normal. And so it just came really naturally. I had all those stories from my childhood, and it just seemed natural to put them down on paper. And I thought, they always scared me. Maybe somebody else would like to hear them. And it turned out, I think they're pretty interesting still after all these years. Even when I was little, everything I remembered when I came to my mother and told her I was going to start writing the stories down, I didn't know how she'd react, and she was fine with it. And she filled in a lot of blanks for me, and she told me stories I had not heard when I was a kid, because even then she would say, stop the stories, you're scaring her. I was like, no, I'm never scared. I love it. But I just naturally, it seemed the thing to do, write them down. And that's what I've been doing for about 5 years now.
So you had a lot of family support then in telling the tales, writing the books, kind of exploring the topic?
Yeah, it was actually surprising, because then my mother hooked me up with some of my cousins I haven't seen for years. She gave me their numbers. I talked to them. They were really great. They were very welcoming, not afraid to share their stories, gave me permission to use their names. My father, who passed away a couple of years ago, he had stories that I had never heard, and he loved it. He was so happy to sit down with me and tell stories, and we would talk on the phone, and he would say, I don't know if you're interested in this, but I remember this happened when I was a teenager, and I was like, yes, give him everything. But I was amazed how open everyone was, because I have had, since then, sometimes I have strangers will bring me stories, or people I barely know, and some people will tell me their story, but they won't let me write it. They just want to kind of get it off their chest. So it's wonderful for me when people say, yeah, use the story. I love it.
What's it like to have somebody tell you a story and not be able to use it? Is that frustrating? Do you use it as a motivator to find other stories, or how does that affect you?
It's a little strange, but I respect them, and I put it in the vault. I'm always kind of scared that I'll tell their story, or I'll accidentally work it into another story just subconsciously. So it's not my favorite thing when that happens, but I can't say, no, I don't want to hear your story. So sometimes, I like hearing them. I wish they would share, and a lot of times I'll change people's names. I'll use a pseudonym, and then they're fine with it. But other people, that's not good enough, and they just really I think, want a little bit of validation, because I've heard a lot of stories, and I think they want someone to say, there's nothing wrong with you. This happens a lot to a lot of people. And they just kind of want to hear that, and that's it. They don't want everyone to know their story. They just want someone to say, you didn't dream this up. This happened, and, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And they move on, and I have their story, and maybe someday they'll change their mind and let me write it. But it doesn't happen very often, but I've had maybe a half a dozen people tell me their stories but say, don't use it.
As you've written the books and as you've put the books out, do you find that more people are more open to coming to you and telling you their stories, or do you find you have to kind of dig a little bit more?
No, I've been really lucky that people have come to me with their stories. A lot of people are sort of an outer circle, like people who read my books through my sister or someone, and they'll come to her and say, I have a story if your sister's interested. And my husband will have friends who say, I didn't know Cindy wrote this stuff. I have stories. And so people come out of the woodwork, and it's great. And I have all these stories, and then I have complete strangers who will contact me through social media, and they'll message me their stories and ask me if I'm interested, and I love it. So, yeah, I welcome people's stories. And it hasn't been difficult so far. I've had more than my share of stories, and I have kind of a backlog, because I like to mix things up and use stories that are only really known to those people and people close to them, and the stories that are more widely known, but maybe people don't have all the details. And sometimes I hear a story that should be widely known, but I'm just hearing it for the first time. So I figure, well, there are a lot of people who don't know this story. So I like to mix it up, and I throw some true crime in, even in my paranormal books, because sometimes there's that element as well. And those are actually my favorite stories.
Yes, you wrote a book called Evil Walks Among Us, and we're going to hit on that at some point over the course of the evening, because there are some fascinating stories, and I want to hear a little bit about one particular story. I won't go into it quite yet, but I do want to hear about that. As you were a child, did you have many paranormal experiences?
Not as a child. Only one that I felt at the time was paranormal, even as a little kid, and that was at my grandmother's house. I slept in a room with my parents and my brother, and she lived way out in the country, nobody else around except my uncle, and he lived down over a hill, and that was it. And there were no street lights because there were no streets. So when it was night, it was just black. And I was asleep, but then I was awake, and inside my head were all these lights, and I felt like I was being chased, but I didn't get out of bed, but I felt like people were chasing me, something that I couldn't see, and it was so weird, and I was screaming. I woke my mother up, and she told me, because I didn't remember it, but she said, you were screaming, they're after me, they're after me. And it wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't like anything I'd ever experienced. I was so terrified. And so many weird things had gone on in my grandmother's house, but never to me. That was my only experience there, but it sounds silly to say it. It was just lights in my head and stuff, but it was terrifying. And I had it happen again years later as an adult in a house that we lived in that we were pretty sure was haunted. It's only ever happened to me twice in my life. But that was my only childhood thing where I felt like something out of my control was present. And it really frightened me, and I never forgot it. It doesn't sound like much, but it was really scary when you're a little kid.
Now, did your experience as a kid and then your adult experiences, is that what kind of drove you to writing about the paranormal, or was it more your family experiences?
It was the family experiences because theirs were really real, just terrifying stories. My cousin Larry, who passed away relatively young, he always had stories. He was pushed down a flight of stairs when he lived in North Carolina. There was nobody there. He was sleeping on a sofa in my aunt's apartment, and he said he could see figures sitting in chairs just staring at him and pointing at him and whispering. And at my grandmother's house, he said something would come to his window at night and tap on the window and want him to come outside. And he told my grandmother, and she was like, she totally believed him. Don't go. I don't care what they tell you. Don't ever leave. Just stay in your bed. And she found him dead in his bed. He was I believe he was 40 or 41. She went in one morning. He didn't come to breakfast, and he had died massive heart attack during the night. And there were so many things that happened to him throughout his life. He went with friends to a cemetery in Virginia, just on a road trip. And when they got there, the cemetery was closed, but something held the back of their car when they tried to leave. And he said something tried to get in the passenger door, something lifted up the back of the car. And when he got home, he told my cousin, his sister, what happened. She didn't believe him. And when she came outside and checked the trunk of the car, and there were handprints on the car. And there was just weird stuff happened to him all the time. And I heard his stories, and I heard my grandmother's stories. She lived in that house out in the middle of nowhere by herself, but she would hear someone pacing on her porch during the night. And she always had an outside dog, and her dogs, one after the other, disappear. And even when all of her dogs were gone, one dog in particular had a really raspy bark, and that dog was long dead. And she heard that dog one night barking when she heard the footsteps on her porch. She had a gate that was spring-loaded, and it would open and close. And people sitting on the porch, my uncle said he saw it, she saw it. The gate would open and close when there was no one there. They could clearly see it. And it's not something that the wind could do. I mean, you had to manually move it to make it open and shut. And there was just always stuff going on there. My sister said something would hit the foot of her bed whenever she slept there. My cousin Donna said the exact same thing happened to her. There'd be no one in the room, and it was clearly two hands just hitting the foot of the bed. And that was the same room that my cousin Larry slept in when he was there, and he said there was something always in the room with him. There's just always something going on. And I heard these stories all the time, but they talked about it like, well, this happens to everyone. And probably as a kid, I assumed that these things did happen to everyone.
Now, in this house, was it a house that they had built? Did they buy it? Was there any previous history? And I'm sure it wasn't talked about back then like it is today, but was there any known history of hauntings in the house beforehand?
They wouldn't have known anything about that. I don't think they built the house, but after my grandmother moved out, I asked my mom, because I was a teenager by then, and I was like, well, didn't they sell the house? And she was like, it's not really a house that belongs to anyone. It's a house out in the middle of the woods. It's not even on a street. It's a weird thing. It's like my grandmother lived there, but it was just a house that was there. I don't know how she came to have it. No one ever talked about it, so I never really understood that. But so I don't know the history of the house, but I know something had to have gone on there, but it didn't revolve around my grandmother, I don't think. I don't know if it's something she moved in and it was there or what, because when she moved from that house, she never experienced anything else, but my cousin still did, because he died in the house that she moved into after that.
Oh, so it could have followed possibly him, but maybe not so much her?
I think it followed him because he moved to North Carolina to get away from it, and it followed him there. He said, like, the burners on his stove would just light up all of a sudden and burn red for no reason. He wasn't touching it. Again, he got pushed down the stairs. He was just someone who was never alone. And he actually, he started drinking to try to have some escape because something was always bothering him. And that continued through his whole life. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was about him. But he worked at the Greenbrier Hotel, and he experienced strange things there that he couldn't explain. He just always had something.
He worked at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, the one that we now know sort of has the bunker for the government officials in it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
He worked there for many, many years. I actually had a room there. As an employee, you can stay on the property, at least you could then, for free. And he had a room at the Greenbrier, and even there he was haunted. So he found no peace in life. And I have this belief, I've heard so many stories that I think some people are just never meant to be born, because once they're born, they're never alone in their lives. And he was one of those people. He never found peace. No matter where he went, he couldn't outrun it. There was always something. And he talked about it all the time. He was always unhappy. And I think he was just someone who was accidentally born because he lived a terrified life.
Oh, that's terrible. So did he experience anything before ever coming into contact with this house? Or was it kind of a lifelong thing for him, or did it start at this house?
No one ever talked about his childhood, so I don't know. I only ever started hearing about it in that house. So I don't know if it sprang from that or if he had been like that since he was a little boy. Because no one talked about the childhood. So I'm not sure about that. I know from teenage years up, I heard story after story. If not from him, then from his mother or my grandmother. But it was always just poor Larry. It's this or it's that. And nothing ever physically really hurt him. Even when he was pushed down the stairs, he was bruised up, but nothing was broken. But it was just, everything was just enough to scare him and let him know, we're here. We're always here. And I think he just lived a life of fear. He was always afraid.
You mentioned that he was not necessarily seriously hurt when he was pushed down the stairs. As you've looked at all of these different hauntings and cases of weirdness, have you sort of seen a pattern with that? Have you noticed that where maybe somebody is something happens to somebody, but they're not injured in a way or as much as you might expect? Or do you think maybe that was just a lucky accident or lucky fluke that he wasn't seriously injured?
No, I've actually heard that a lot, and I've heard that spirits can't really harm the living. I don't know if that's true because they can clearly try. Because, he was pushed down the stairs. There would have been no way of knowing that he wouldn't break a leg or break his neck. So I'm not so sure that ghosts can't hurt you. I think that they can, but I've heard more stories of people who've been pinched, they've been pushed, they've had their hair pulled. I've not heard of anyone being seriously injured, but there's definitely physical contact. And even in the house that we lived in, when we moved out, it was because there'd been just little tricks for so long, and then the last thing was our floor furnace just fell in one night, and it was hooked to a gas line, and the gas line did not sever, even though they cordoned off our street, and we had the fire department, and everything went crazy. And the fireman said, you all are so lucky because best case scenario, your house should be on fire right now. Worst case, this whole block should have gone up. But it didn't happen.
When you say the furnace fell in, was it in the basement or and like collapse on itself, or was it on an upper floor and fall through the floor?
It was on an upper floor and it fell through into the basement.
And the gas lines didn't break.
And the gas lines didn't sever because the people who lived there before us, who we came to learn, we felt they were haunting the house. They had built a blower underneath the furnace, and the furnace had fallen onto that blower, which prevented it from going clear to the floor. If it had hit the floor, it would have severed the line. But the blower had stopped it. So the whole thing was so ridiculous. There was no reason for that to have happened. That floor furnace was secure. It had been there who knows how long. It wasn't something that could just organically happen. No one walked across it. It just happened completely randomly.
Was there any sign of was the floor damaged below it? Was it rotted or cut, or how did it come through? We've got about a minute and a half left before the break. How did it come to just fall through the floor and not be, was it cut? Was it damaged? Was there rot? How did it do that?
It wasn't. There was no rot. It was not damaged. The gas company actually came the next day, and we were expecting them. They had the fire department or someone had red tagged it unusable, and the gas company came and they fixed it. They put it back in place. It was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with the wood around it. The floor was still intact. The furnace was still fine. There was a lip there, so there was no reason for it to fall through. It was this weird thing that we couldn't explain and they couldn't explain. It just wasn't something that could happen, and yet it happened. And I had never even known such a thing was possible, but it was fine. I mean, they said, you can use the furnace, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. They literally just put it back in place, and it was fine.
Wow, that is a crazy story. Cindy, we're going to step out for a break here for a couple of minutes. Can you hold on, and we're going to continue this discussion?
Sure.
Thanks.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are. And what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacy, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you for sticking with us. Don't forget, if you've missed any part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store, reading up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight we're talking to Cindy Parmiter. She is an author who's written several books on true paranormal stories. And what we're going to do is just delve into some of these stories and see where they take us. Cindy, I want to say so much for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Now you wrote a book called Chilling Tales of the Shadowlands, where you touch on some of the Hollywood landmarks that have some haunted history. Can we dig into a few of those?
I think one of them was the Comedy Store, which I really love that story, mainly because, well, supposedly, Mitzi Shore established the Comedy Store where she would give young comedians a showcase. And supposedly it had been like a mobster hangout back in the 30s, and people had been killed in the basement. That's where they took, people who owed them money or whatever, and there was like rumors that abortions had taken place down there. So there was a lot of like strange activity in the basement. People who worked at the Comedy Store would say, they didn't like to go down there. There was like a dark figure that was seen in the basement pretty frequently, and nobody wanted to go down there alone because they didn't know what they'd encounter. But even in the main room, Sam Kinison was one of the comedians that kind of got his start at the Comedy Store. And for some reason, whatever was haunting that place really hated him. And it was no secret. Right in with an audience there, the voices would start, and they would just be, it would start out, people would say it was like angry bees, and then they would start screaming, it's him, and they would drown him out. He couldn't do his act. The lights would go out, and the sound would start going completely out of whack. And it was always Sam Kinison. And he would get so frustrated, and he would yell at them, show me. You have something to say, show me. And the lights would go out. And it was kind of thought that maybe it was because before he was a comedian, he was like a fire and brimstone preacher. And that somehow the spirits in the Comedy Store really resented that religious aspect of him. But it was just strange that they picked on him so much. And
Sam,
kind of
excuse me, Sam Kinison was a fire and brimstone preacher before he got into comedy?
Yeah. And that was always kind of the rumor why the ghost of the Comedy Store really, of all the comedians there, he was the one that they picked on the most.
Wow, I had never heard that about him.
I believe he was Pentecostal, if I'm not mistaken, and very devout.
That's interesting because he took such a he diverted from that so much with his comedy. Maybe a little bit of rebellion there, maybe something, but I would have never have pictured him as a Pentecostal minister.
Yeah, he was, I would never have believed it, but I'm pretty sure that was his background, and he went completely 180, but yeah.
Now, with the Comedy Store, do you think that some of the activity there was fueled by the comedians themselves? So many people talk about how sometimes comedians are in fact the darkest or saddest people that we know, and many of them have had issues and troubles that kind of show that darkness. Do you think that could have helped fuel sort of the activity there? And was it just against Sam Kinison, or were there other comedians that experienced it?
I don't think it was just him. I think he was the only one that they literally kind of attacked while he was performing. Because a lot of the comedians also kind of worked backstage, and I think they experienced it, but not on the level that he did. And he's the only one that I heard about that they actually made no secrets. In front of an audience, they would attack him. So that was just really strange. There was, I think it was a security guard, Blake Clark, and he had to go down in the basement one day, and he had this weird thing that there was a black figure, but when he was down there, a black piece of paper just materialized out of nowhere. It floated down, landed right at his feet. He picked it up, and his name was scrawled on it. and it came out of absolutely nowhere. And he was like, that's it. I'm never going back in that basement again. Whatever's down there knows me by name. And the basement, I think, is where it all kind of stemmed from. But I do agree that I have heard, too, that comedians sometimes have really kind of, I don't want to say dark souls, but, I mean, they use laughter to hide a lot of kind of depression and sort of dark feelings. And maybe that attracted spirits, but I kind of lean more towards the fact that it's just a lot of people allegedly died in the basement or were beaten up in the basement, tortured in the basement. A lot of really bad things happened there. And that's a lot of negative energy to have in one place. And maybe just the fact that comedy was taking place in the same place where all these tragedies had occurred just brought two worlds together. But so many people experience things at the Comedy Store that I don't think it's coincidence or imagination. Something was going on there.
Oh, that's crazy. I had never heard that about the Comedy Store. Do you have any tales from Sunset Strip? I mean, a lot of people go to the music venues and things there with the hopes and dreams, and certainly that lifestyle has its ups and downs. Are there any tales from there?
I don't have any off the top of my head, but nothing surprises me when it comes to places where dreams are dashed, where people go with these huge aspirations and just find disappointment. And so many people take their own lives, or they fall victim to sketchy characters, and they're never seen or heard from again. So many murders take place. I mean, with all that, again, that negative energy, it wouldn't surprise me that any place in Hollywood or New York or places where people go to try to achieve their dreams, and when it doesn't happen, I think it takes a really dark turn. And I think there are a lot of really sad spirits out there, because I think if you accomplish everything you want to accomplish, you move on and everything's okay. If you're left feeling like, I didn't do anything I wanted to do, everything went wrong, I think you're tied to earth. Maybe you get a chance to try again, I don't know. But I think it keeps you earthbound because you didn't accomplish anything. And I think there are a lot of sad souls that just didn't get to do what they wanted to do, and now they just sort of linger. And I do think when people die violently, more often than not, they don't realize that they're no longer living. I think it takes something to jolt them into that reality. I've heard so many stories of spirits. One, if I can tell you really quick, the Lake Waco murders in Texas. 3 teenagers were killed, 2 girls and a boy, and 2 different women on the night they were killed who had no connection to them had images of their murders and felt like they were actually there seeing it. And one of the women was so attached to the case that before the killers were apprehended, she tried to contact the victim through automatic writing and accomplished it. And one of the girls told her details that when the lady went to the police, they were things that she couldn't have known. She had to have either heard them from the killers or the victims. And the girl that she felt the killers had focused the most on, she tried to reach that girl, and the girl wouldn't respond. So the psychic asked the other girl, why won't Jill talk to me? And the girl's like, Jill doesn't know she's dead, so she's not going to talk to you. And I think that happens a lot.
Now, these murders in Waco, when did they take place?
That was in the 80s.
Okay.
And one of three men, I believe, were arrested, and 2 died in prison, and 1 was executed. But some of the information that these 2 women gave to police was so accurate, because one of them, in her vision, had seen a tattoo of a bird on one of the killer's arms, and he did have a tattoo of wings on his arm. And she couldn't have known that. These two women weren't even in Waco. They lived in different towns in Texas. But they were so disturbed by what they had seen. One of the women said it was just like watching a movie play, but pieces would be gone. And she just watched the whole thing unfold. And the other lady was like, I was there. I felt like I was riding in the car with them. And then I felt like I was seeing it through the victim's point of view. I could see the killers. I could hear what was being said. And they had just little details. Like one of the girls had a bra tied around her ankle. And in the automatic writing, she told the psychic, tell them not to look for my bra. I wasn't wearing it. It's on my ankle. And it's just weird things like that. She couldn't have known that. And she had actually contacted police before the story had even broken on the news. So it was just a really creepy aspect to a horrible murder. But the fact that two complete strangers, they didn't know each other and they didn't know anyone involved, and they'd seen almost the identical thing from their own homes. And that just really creeped me out. And the sad story that one of the victims, at least, couldn't accept what had happened. And who knows if she ever did. And it's just a really strange thing when something like that happens so suddenly.
Yeah, I can understand that. And we're hearing more and more instances where maybe people don't seem to be moving over to the other side as they should. Moving back to Hollywood, what about the Hollywood sign? Have you done any writing on that, on the stories and mysteries surrounding the sign?
I haven't. I might do, though, because I've actually thought about it, but I just haven't done the research. But I've heard stories of people actually leaping to their deaths from the sign when they didn't make it as a starlet or whatever. So I'm sure there's a story there. And I know that there's actually been victims of crimes whose bodies have been dumped really close to the sign, somewhere in that vicinity. So a lot has gone on in that area. So I'm sure there's a paranormal history. I need to get into that and really get as much detail as I can. But that might turn up in a future book.
What about the movie studios? There has to be some history or some horrific tales from some of the potential dreaming to be stars and starlets on the movie lots. Do you cover anything like that?
I haven't done that either. I usually stick kind of with crime scenes. Cielo Drive, where Sharon Tate and her friends were murdered. A lot went on there, and I feel like that property was definitely tainted, and I know that even after it was torn down, the guy who moved in to the house next door has experienced, he still lives there, and he's experienced all kinds of things, and he's brought mediums in and psychics, and one of them said, I saw a pregnant woman running down the street covered in blood, which didn't happen on the night of the murders, but it's something that she sees now. And, he woke up one night and there was a man standing in his room, staring out the window and pointing towards where Cielo Drive, the house on Cielo Drive where Sharon Tate died, used to be. And he was pointing in that direction. And the guy who owns the house had never seen this man before, but he saw him that night, and he actually went to the police later on and wanted to know, were any bodies found where I live now? Because I'm seeing things. And they were like, no, but they showed him pictures, and Jay Sebring was the man he had seen in his room, who was one of the victims that night. He was like, I saw his face as plain as day, and that was him. I had never seen his picture before. So He's had all kinds of strange things. But he still lives in the house, but he's experienced, he had a party, actually when he first moved into the house, and one of his guests went into the kitchen and said, someone just ran past the kitchen window. His kitchen window was so far off the ground it was impossible unless the person was flying. There was no ground underneath that window. But she was like, I saw someone, literally a person, ran past the window. There's all sorts of strange things. A glass was thrown against a wall and smashed, even though people could clearly see it happen and no one had touched the glass. So he kind of sort of assumed that these victims can't rest, and they're, for some reason, kind of focusing on him and his property.
Now, did you say that he saw a pregnant woman, or the image of a pregnant woman running down the street?
A medium that he brought in said that she saw a blonde pregnant woman covered in blood running down the street.
Okay. That would assumably be Sharon Tate. She was pregnant at the time, correct?
She was. She wasn't one of the victims who ran out of the house on the night of the murders, but again, I think sometimes spirits who want to be seen want to give a strong image so that you're aware that you're seeing this unreal thing. And so maybe that was, if what the medium saw was real, maybe that was just her way of saying, it's me, this is me, and I can't rest until I find justice. And it seemed like for this guy, he kind of felt like they seem to relive that night over and over again because they're always running for help, or someone hears them yelling, screaming for help because no one helped them that night, and maybe it just replays over and over again, hoping for a different outcome. Because, I don't know, maybe they're all trapped in this place that they can't escape from.
Now, the property, the Manson, or the property where the Manson murders took place, that is actually vacant still, is it not?
I think that it was finally torn down. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that it no longer stands.
And there's nothing that's been built in its place.
I don't know if a new house has been built there. I actually wrote about this, but it's been a little while, and I can't remember for certain. I'm pretty sure that the original structure was torn down. I would feel pretty certain they probably have built on it. I know that this guy's house was a new construction. His father actually, I believe, built the house for him, had the house built for him. But, yeah, I'm not really positive.
What's your favorite story from the Hollywood area that you like to tell most or talk about most?
That's a tough one. That's kind of, I really don't know because, I mean, I'm always fascinated with Sharon Tate and her story and the fact that she had a vision long before any of this happened. She had been staying at J.C. Bring's house, not the house that she was killed in, and he was away, and she had gotten out of bed, gone downstairs, was coming back up the stairs, and she saw an image of a woman tied up, bloody. She saw, I can't remember the actor's name, an actor who had died sometime before that. She saw his ghost. I was like, she kind of had a premonition of what was going to happen. And I think that happens quite often. I think sometimes it happens in dreams, and sometimes people don't know if they're awake or dreaming, and they see something that eventually comes to pass. And I think she had a premonition of what was going to happen to her.
Okay, I can see that. I can understand that. Is there any other? What's the most famous besides the Manson murders in CeeLo Drive? What's the most famous landmark that you've written about in Hollywood?
I haven't actually written a lot about Hollywood. Other than the Comedy Store, nothing comes to mind. because I also wasn't aware of the Comedy Store's history. So I really don't have a good answer for that, because that was pretty much it for me.
Okay, I can understand that. What about, and we'll just start on this, and then we'll take a break and continue with it. You've touched a bit on urban legends, and I think that with Halloween coming up and all of the weird and spooky urban legends, and some of them that have turned out to be true, what was it like to delve into those? Did it kind of give you a creeped out feeling, or were you able to step back and just look at them? And have you ever experienced any of the urban legends?
I haven't experienced any of the well-known urban legends, but I find most of them really creepy, and I think all of them, and that's kind of the angle that I took in my book, was they all have a seed of truth. They come from somewhere, and then I think they're kind of built on. One person tells a story, and then someone else adds to it, and it becomes a bigger-than-life thing. But I think they all start with truth. I like a lot of them. For Halloween, I like the hollow-eyed, usually it's girls, the hollow-eyed children that tend to kind of show up around Halloween. And that, I kind of think there's a grain of truth in that, because there was a lady in England who took a picture in a park of her own children, and when she took it to the chemist and had it developed, there was a hollow-eyed girl in the picture who hadn't been there when she took the picture. And it was just this weird, creepy thing. And I do kind of have that sort of eerie thing that during Halloween, it is the one time of year where anyone, ghouls and goblins or whatever, can make an appearance and no one knows the difference.
Now, when you say,
so I think it's
when you say hollow-eyed children, are you referring to what a lot of people would call black-eyed kids?
Yeah, I kind of prefer hollow-eyed, because everything that I've read and heard, there's just sort of, there's no orb there. So they really don't have black eyes. Well, the stories that I've heard, there's no eyes. There's just blackness where eyes should be, which is even creepier for me.
You know what? That is entirely creepy, and we're going to step out for a break here, but we're going to pick up with that when we get back, because I want to dig into the hollow-eyed or black-eyed kids phenomena with you. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark, and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thieme. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
Are you looking to keep up with Spaced Out Radio? What better way to do so than to go shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store? It's a great place to get exciting swag that will make you look good. We have t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and so much more for you to dress yourself up with. All you have to do is go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the store, and get what you want. It's that simple. So come shop at our store, where we can own the night together.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docuseries featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and Bigfoot in the forest. Truth seekers like Steve Bassett, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Richard Dolan, as well as others all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you for sticking around with us. We welcome back everyone listening on our terrestrial affiliates. KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California. WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. And UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store, and reading up on the SOR Newswire, where you can find Dave's weekly blog and so much more. We're having a discussion here with Cindy Parmiter, and we ended the last segment with talking about hollowed eye people, or a lot of people know them as black-eyed kids. Cindy, you were telling a story about some. Can you continue with that?
I've heard stories of people who claim that kids will come to their door, and when they answer, there are these really strange, white, really super white skin, usually black hair, almost always girls, and they insist on coming in the house. They don't ask for candy. They want to come in, and they're very demanding, and the homeowner will go, no, and they'll want to push their way in, and the homeowner will end up slamming the door and locking it because these kids are so intimidating. And then the kids are gone, and that's it. But it's just this weird, they're not trick-or-treaters. There's something else. And, I've heard theories that maybe they're almost always seen on the street. I've heard stories where people will claim that usually a little girl in a white dress will be standing in the middle of the road, and they'll assume she's in distress, and they'll stop to help her, and she wants to get in the car. And when the person doesn't let her in the car, the little girl throws a tantrum, and she gets really angry. And the person will leave to get help, and the police will tell them, we've had 2 or 3 calls about this little girl, but we can't find her anywhere. And the theory that I've heard, which actually makes some sense, since these kids are almost always seen in the street or in the subway station or train station, that maybe when they were very young they died in some kind of automobile accident, train accident, and maybe that's why they're kind of bound to places where there's a lot of transit. That doesn't explain the ones that come to people's doors, but they seem to be looking for a home, wanting to be taken by somebody, but they're not really children. And even the people who have claimed that, that their car was stopped by this little girl, once they get a look at her face, it's obvious that she's not a child as we know a child. Something's really wrong with this person. And so I like the hollow-eyed. I don't know why they don't have eyes. I've never read anything or heard anything that explains that.
Now,
but
you had said that they try and force their way in or push their way in, but aren't there as many stories out there saying that they don't seem to want to come in unless they're invited? They almost sort of try and convince people to invite them in, and if they're not invited, they just leave?
That's interesting, because I haven't heard that. All of the stories I've heard, they're pretty demanding. They really want to either get in your car or get in your house. But yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard that.
Okay. Well, what's the origination of the hollow eye people or black-eyed kids? Do you know where it kind of began?
I'm not really sure. The first story that I know of was in the UK around 1980, and that's when I don't actually remember the name of the town. It was in a small town, and it was a hollow-eyed girl that kind of showed up in the town, and several people claimed that they encountered this little girl. And then stories started to spread all over Europe that, oh yeah, well, I've encountered this little girl, or my neighbor encountered this little girl. And it reached the Americas, and then it just kind of took off, and everywhere you turn, someone either heard someone, and it actually probably a couple of years ago, it came across my social media. A woman that I know very well put a warning out. If you see a little girl tries to stop your car in the road, keep going, because, I heard she'll try to get in your car, and she's not really a little girl. And it's like, oh, well, that's just a Halloween prank. But people take it very seriously, and I always tend to think that stories like that came from somewhere. And at some point, it really happened to someone, or something very similar to that happened.
As you've studied the phenomena, have you noticed maybe a concentration of experiences in one part of the country, or are they kind of just randomly spread out? How's that?
For this story, excuse me, it seems like it's worldwide. I don't think it's settled in any one country or any certain section of the United States. It's one of those strange phenomena that's pretty much worldwide.
Okay. What's your favorite, or do you have a favorite hollowed eye person or black-eyed kid story that you like to relate?
Not really, because I don't have any specific stories. The ones I've heard are pretty much what I've already said, the stopping the car or coming to the door. I did like the one in England where the lady actually got a picture and swore that, this child was not my child, and this child was not there when I took this picture. And she had no explanation for how this figure showed up in her photograph.
Do you know if we can find that photograph anywhere? Is it been published? Has it been posted anywhere, or is it something she's kind of keeping to herself?
That's a good question. I've never found the photo. I've found other photos, and one of them is actually not a child. It's a woman with very white face and hollow eyes and dark hair, and she showed up in a picture. And this was in Liverpool. There's a haunted. It used to be an orphanage, and then was a hospital. And some paranormal investigators, a large group, were there, and they took a group. Just here we are. Here's all of us. Took a group photo, and the guy who took it uploaded it immediately to social media. And he didn't notice anything wrong with it. And people on social media were saying, "Who's that woman in the middle?" Because she does not belong with everyone else. She's dressed differently. Her face is very strange. She doesn't belong there. And that picture is available online, and it's very spooky. And he's like, "This was not Photoshop. This was not trickery. I uploaded this picture immediately after I took it." And his social media lit up, but he didn't know anything about it. And then when he went back and looked, it's clear that this woman did not belong there. But she very much fit the description of the hollow-eyed kid, except she's obviously an adult.
Okay. With the onset of security cameras and doorbell cameras and all kinds of video surveillance, have there been more reports or more instances of people getting pictures or seeing these things, or has that not really sort of affected the phenomena?
I don't really think it's had any effect. And I'm someone who I believe that spirits and ghosts, I think they're very savvy. I think ones that want to be seen will be seen, but more often than not, they don't want to be seen, and they're not stupid. I think they know especially I think they're very tuned in to electronic devices. And sometimes they use that. They draw power from it. That's why people will say, you know, the batteries died in my camera or something, because they use that juice. And I think that's also why spirits don't always appear. I think they need something to draw energy from something in order to make an appearance. I've had so many stories where people say, my cell phone stopped working. And
that's a very common phenomenon with the paranormal. Do you think then that they have the ability to sort of hide themselves, show themselves, decide who or what is going to see them? And how do you think that affects, well, the people who experience it, or the ghost hunters out there, or the paranormal investigators?
Absolutely. I think that they know. And I think, like the picture I was talking about in Liverpool, clearly this image that appears wanted to be seen. She's clearly posing. And I think that's unusual. This is what, it kind of bothers me when people say, well, I want documentation, show me. They're seen when they want to be seen. If they want their picture taken, you'll get their picture. But I think they're able to manipulate that. I think they know full well if they come to your door if they're being filmed or not. And if they want to be filmed, they will. And if they don't, they're not going to come to your door. Or that's going to malfunction, and nothing's going to show up. And that's why so many ghost hunter shows, and which, you know, they spend so much time and they don't find anything, or they don't have any evidence. I think that's by design. I think that they can go to the most haunted place there is, but if the spirits there don't want to be seen or heard, they're not going to be seen and heard. And it's up to them. If they want to show, they will. And it's just that simple. So when people kind of debunk these shows and say, oh, they never find anything, it doesn't mean it's not there. They just don't want to be found. And I think there's a fear. I think even as spirits, they're afraid that, well, if I show them irrefutable proof that I'm here, they're going to get rid of me somehow. And I don't want to leave. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think that's why most of them don't want to be seen. They don't want to be caught on film.
Well, what about the spirits then, and you had mentioned one earlier, that have passed but don't know that they've passed on? Do they then have the ability to decide who is or isn't going to see them, or are they simply out there wandering for anybody who may see them to see?
I really think those are the ones more often than not that are seen and that are caught on film and that are heard, because I think that they just want to go on living their lives. They don't understand that. I think there has to be some realization because they can't communicate. They have to know, people don't see me, something's wrong. But I don't think that connection is made, that, I'm no longer living. I don't belong here anymore. I think that's why so many houses are haunted. I think spirits return to their house. That's the place that they know. They don't understand, why doesn't anyone acknowledge me? This is the only place I know, and I'm staying right here. Eventually, maybe it dawns on them and they move on. But so I do think that...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
I just think that's why they're the ones I feel like are seen, because they either want to be seen or they don't realize that they're gone.
Okay, as long as we're talking urban legends, every town has the haunted cemetery, and you mentioned that people, when they pass on, they may want to go back to where they were living, which makes a lot of sense. But so many people talk about cemeteries as being haunted and having ghost stories there and activity there. What's your thought on that? Having written about urban legends, what's your thought on the idea of haunted cemeteries?
That's That's a tricky one for me because I do believe in haunted cemeteries. I think they are one of the most haunted places. But I have a few theories about that. I mean, someone told me a long time ago when I had my cat euthanized, and they said, take your cat back home with you. Don't leave her at the vet's office. Because if you don't take her back home, her soul's not going to know where she belongs, and she's going to be stuck at the vet's office. And that always stuck with me because I thought, well, maybe as a spirit, some spirits can't find their way back home. So I think that's why some cemeteries are known as kind of places of unrest, because they don't want to be there, but they don't know how to be where they used to be. They don't know how to get back home. So they're confined to this place that they don't know and they don't want to be. I had a story, this was in Mexico, in a cemetery, this little boy, and this was a really spooky story for me. The little fella, he was 6 years old when he died, and he had a really strange life. He was really claustrophobic. He couldn't go out in the sunlight because his skin was so sensitive, but he was terrified of the dark, so he had to sleep with the light on. And after he died, for 10 days after his death, in the morning he was entombed, but every morning his body would be outside of his casket. And after the 10th morning of him having to be reinterred, his parents had a mausoleum constructed for him with a window so that even though he was no longer living, he could see out. And at night, they lit candles on every corner so that he wasn't in the dark. And he was never found outside of his casket again. And his was the only body where that happened. And this cemetery is one of the most haunted in the world. There's so much activity there.
When did this take place?
I don't remember exactly. I mean, it wasn't all that long ago. It's been in the 1900s. I can't remember exactly the date for the little boy, but the cemetery is still there. It used to be a cemetery split in half for rich people and half for poor people. It was when there was a huge cholera outbreak. He was much later on, and now it's the part that was for rich people was converted, and a hospital annex was built there. But where the paupers were buried is still there, and it's considered extremely haunted. And there's a tree there that they call the vampire tree, because a local man had a stake driven through his heart because there'd been some animal killings and some babies that were killed, and it was assumed he was a vampire because all the bodies were drained of blood. And the stake that had been run through his heart, a tree sprouted from it. And this tree is a real thing, and there are pictures of it on the internet. And the caretakers of the cemetery are so sure that this tree keeps that vampire in his casket that they built a fence around it to protect it because they're terrified that someone will try to cut it down. Because for this it's in Guadalajara, for this whole city, they feel protected by that tree because it keeps someone that is still suspected to have been a vampire in his coffin where he belongs.
Wow, that is crazy. When I say that's crazy, that not the idea of it, but just that this tree would sprout up among that. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And supposedly, people, before the fence was put up, people would snip off branches, and the sap that ran from the branches would run red, which gave it the name of vampire tree. It's a really spooky story, and it's a very scary cemetery. There are lots of stories revolving around it. And to this day, it's still there, and supposedly extremely haunted.
Now, what do you think of the idea of some of these mausoleums? And I'm not referring to like an individual family mausoleum, but when you go to some of these cemeteries, there will be a big structure with many, many people and families in it. Do you have any stories of hauntings of those?
I don't have any stories of hauntings as far as mausoleums. But as far as cemeteries, I know one where the family monument was supposedly, it was nicknamed Black Aggie, and this monument was supposedly haunted, and people claimed that she could, even though made of stone, that she could shift when she wanted to. And some people claimed that after dark they had seen gray figures huddled around, and it was thought that whatever was possessing this monument would call forth the lost spirits that were in the cemetery who had no guidance and nowhere to go, and they would huddle around this kind of mother figure. And it was kind of a spooky, weird story, and I do believe that. I do believe that there are a lot of lost souls in cemeteries that are just looking for somebody. How do we get out of here? And Black Aggie was their kind of mother figure.
Well, that whole idea of the statuary in cemeteries moving, that's not new. There have been a lot of reports of that, hasn't there?
There have, and that doesn't surprise me. And here, very near where we live, there's a cemetery with a statue, a monument, and she's called the Weeping Woman because she has her head bowed and she's very mournful. She has a reputation for granting wishes, and even if you go there today, people leave strange gifts for her. They leave playing cards for some reason, and candles, and supposedly if a woman has trouble conceiving, if she goes to the Weeping Woman and requests a baby, she'll get pregnant. People have claimed that she's very mischievous. She'll unzip people's clothes. She'll tug on their hair, pull at them. It's a really strange thing, and we've actually been there a few times, and I didn't get that feeling, but there's something about it that in the whole cemetery you're drawn to this one monument. And when you're there, I got a really peaceful feeling around her. But other people said, she made them very uneasy, and there was something almost lifelike about her. And she's very infamous in this area, and no one doesn't know about her.
Wow.
It's really strange because she's stone, but she has this strange kind of charisma and power. It's really strange.
That is fascinating. We're going to step out for a quick break, and when we come back, Cindy, we're going to talk a little bit maybe about some clowns.
Okay.
All right. We will be right back.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens, or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today. Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and I thank you for being here. Don't forget, if you've missed part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us that favor and hit the subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some of that Bumblefoot, checking some stuff out at the Spaced Out Radio store, and reading up at the SOR Newswire. And there's so much more there. We're talking right now with Cindy Parmiter about urban legends. And we were talking about cemeteries, but with the Halloween season fast approaching, the one thing that fascinates me and I really want to talk about is clowns. There have been reports over the past couple of years of these weird clowns just showing up or wandering around or threatening people. And at first it seemed to be some sort of marketing ploy for possibly a movie, possibly something else. But it kind of evolved, and Cindy's written a bit about it. So, Cindy, what's your take on the urban legend kind of clown persona out there?
The clown thing, that's a tough one because for me, I'm someone who is scared of clowns. There's just something weird about them. I think that it's a really easy, I think most people are kind of scared of clowns. I think it's a really easy disguise for someone to wear who has bad intentions. I've heard the stories too. Clowns just showing up on the street or standing behind a bush and he's there and then he's gone, and is it just someone playing a joke? Or it's so easy, even today, if you walk outside and someone's walking down the street dressed as a clown, you think, oh, that's funny or that's creepy or whatever. He could have just done anything. He could be another John Wayne Gacy, even though he didn't commit his crimes dressed as a clown. That was part of his persona. And it's like, it's an easy disguise, and it's creepy, but you can get away with stuff when you're dressed as a clown. And there have been stories of clowns kidnapping children off the street or trying to lure them into vans. The whole clown thing's really spooky because I think it's one of those, if you walk down the street dressed as a werewolf in February, people are going to pay you a lot of attention. If you walk down the street dressed as a clown, they're going to assume he's going to a birthday party or he's whatever, and they'll look at you and keep walking. It's a scary disguise for me because I think, plus there's that, it's almost like the same thing with comedians. People who seem like they're trying to be funny or sometimes the darkest kind of souls. And clowns are just a scary thing. I think that's kind of universal. They're not what they were. They were first intended to be like the jester and the entertainment. And then somewhere along the line, it took this kind of sinister turn. And it's like there's still that, but there's also that creep factor to it. It's just weird. I question anyone I see dressed as a clown.
Do you think that it sort of started or got reinvigorated with the John Wayne Gacy case? Was that the beginning of what we know as the modern clown sort of epidemic, or does it go deeper, farther back, or did it kind of start again separately from that? Because we have had what seems to be the last few years, a lot of these clown sightings. And obviously Gacy was back in, the late 70s. And I'm in the Chicago area. I'm very familiar with the John Wayne Gacy case. In fact, ironically, one of his dump sites is not that far from my house.
Wow.
So do you think that he kind of, or his dressing as a clown kind of started it all, or is it different than that? Is it farther back or more recent?
I kind of think it started with him because there was just it just added to an already horrible story of this serial killer hiding bodies in the crawl space of his house and just this awful person who also was this respected businessman and would dress as Pogo the Clown and go to children's hospitals. And he was this great guy. And I've seen this creepy, when he painted his own self-portrait, it was always as Pogo. It was just this weird thing that, you know, he was these two completely different people, this horrible killer here and this clown that entertained children. And I think that kind of started it with this kind of facade that he had of, oh, I'm just this innocent great guy, but really I'm just the worst of the worst. And I think that maybe kind of got it started, because I think when people think of him, it's always the killer clown now. And I think he jump-started it. I don't know. There were probably crazed clowns before him, but he's the first one I ever heard of.
Now, there were a lot of images and videos shared on social media the last few years about these clowns wandering the streets, and some of them turned out to be hoaxes. Some of them turned out to be, you know, people just trying to capitalize on the fun. But there have also been those images that you see where a clown seems to come out of nowhere and attack the camera holder or a group of people. Have you heard or written about any of these cases where somebody was actually hurt by a clown?
I have. I mean, I've heard about them, but I haven't written about them. But again, I think it's because it's a really convenient disguise, because nobody knows who this person is. Who was it? It was a clown. That's all you can say. And yeah, it's a really convenient way to assault someone if that's what your intentions are. The whole clown thing's really spooky for me because it is so anonymous, and it could be anybody. It's strange that it's kind of, and it does still come up, and we'll probably hear some this Halloween, because it kind of comes in waves, that there'll be these sightings, and a lot of it you can tell it's just pranksters and people trying to cash in on the whole clown thing. But then other times I think, you know, some of these aren't just pranksters. You know, these are people who really are probably dangerous people, but they get mixed in with the ones who aren't, and you're not gonna be able to identify who's harmless and who isn't. So if I encountered someone dressed as a clown who pops out of nowhere, I think I would get out of there fast, because there'd be no way of knowing, is this someone who just wants their picture, you know, on my social media, or is this someone who's really out to harm someone?
If I remember right, I believe it was maybe last year around this time, there was an older gentleman who he one of the activities that he did was he would dress as a clown, and he would go to the retirement homes and entertain people for a while. And if I remember right, he was walking down the street, I believe, and on his way to one of these places, and he was actually arrested or detained at the time because somebody called him in as a dangerous clown. Have you heard any other stories like that?
I haven't heard that, but I could see that happening, because, again, I mean, most clowns pretty much look alike. It's like how it's almost, I hate to say it, it's almost like the perfect disguise for someone, because then legitimate entertainers like that gentleman could easily be confused with someone who's just done something horrible. Yeah, I haven't really heard about that, but I can absolutely see that happening.
Is the clown phenomena still going on? Have you collected any reports or written about any recently?
Not recently, but I feel like it's one of those things that comes in waves. So I'm sure it will come back around, especially now, you know, with the new movie out. Yeah, I think that we'll be hearing more about clowns, and clowns are a scary phenomenon, but they're not going to go away anytime soon. I actually hear more stories sort of about sinister encounters with clowns than what they're intended to be. The whole funny clown thing, you just don't hear about very much anymore.
Right. It's a bad day. It's a bad generation to be in the clown profession. With Halloween coming up, what about those legends and stories about candy that's been spiked with something, laced with something? You used to hear the story of the razor blade in the apple. Have you investigated or written about any of those?
I have, and actually, for a stranger to do that is almost unheard of. There have been cases where children have been poisoned or found something harmful in a candy. It's almost always, I'm sorry to say, their parents that have done it. In one case, it was a man who he was having a lot of financial problems, and he decided to taint the Halloween candy to get rid of his own children, and to make it look like someone else did it, he poisoned some of the neighbor children as well, who fortunately did not die. The casualty, his own son, did die. But fortunately, one of the neighbors, he put the poison in pixie sticks. I don't know if I can say that. And one of his children who survived, who did not eat the candy, knew where the candy had come from, and that's how they caught the guy.
Was that a case that was that a case that took place, I want to say, in the early 60s, and is kind of the origination of this urban legend? Are we talking about the same one?
I want to say that is right. I know it was decades ago. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I wrote that story, but because I was also fascinated, because I know when I was a kid, my parents always checked my candy, and I did that with my daughter to make sure there was nothing in there. But, yeah, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was a long while back, and I don't remember what happened to that man. I mean, he did go to prison. I don't know if he's still living, but he did kill his own son, and it didn't bother him a bit if he killed some other children along the way. So I think people, it's like with most crimes, you really have to look at people close. And it's very unusual for a stranger to want to harm trick-or-treaters. It's just, I think it probably started with that and similar cases to that, because people take advantage of it, and it snowballed into this big thing that really, I think, is really super unusual. There's never been a case that I've ever heard of where a child has actually been seriously harmed or died because a stranger tainted their Halloween candy.
I can understand that. I've never. I know that it's almost sort of a town tradition in many places to have the police department or a hospital available where you can take your children's candy to have it, whether it be x-rayed or looked at or things like that, even if you choose to check it yourself. But I don't think that I've ever, at least that I've seen or heard of a recent case of something like that. So is it maybe really just kind of one of those urban legends that's got a slight impetus in truth, but it's just not something that really takes place?
I sort of think so. I think that it's had its roots in reality, but then I think it just kind of took off and people maybe got a little hysterical, and it sort of turned into something that it wasn't.
But obviously, in this day and age, it makes complete sense to look at your children's candy and make sure it is safe, because you don't know what's out there. Just because it hasn't happened recently doesn't mean it won't happen again.
Exactly. Oh, I still say check your kids' candy, because you never know. And I actually just looked it up, and the case, little boy who died was 8. It was in Texas in 1974.
Okay.
The little boy whose dad poisoned his candy. So, yeah, so it probably started long before that.
Maybe. I don't know that. I don't know that we'd find out. When did trick-or-treating really become a thing? Was that, would you say, in the 40s, 50s?
Oh, I don't know. It's been ever since I can remember, and I'm sure long before that. I'm somewhere along the line, obviously something must have happened that triggered people. But I don't know what the very first time would have been, but I would be very surprised if it was a stranger.
Well, you know, what I'm noticing with a lot of these urban legends is that there is an initial grain of truth. There is one event that kind of sparks it, but then they certainly do take off and grow. I mean, we've talked about John Wayne Gacy and the clown connection, and we've talked about that case in Texas in 1974 with the poisoning, and that's certainly grown. Are there any other, or what's your favorite urban legend that maybe is sort of along the lines of that? There was a true event that kind of spurred it, and it's just taken on a life of its own.
I don't know. I mean, my favorite urban legend is Bloody Mary. And it kind of started, like, I believe it was in the 1800s. There was just sort of this tradition that young girl who wanted to kind of know her future would light a candle. And supposedly, if with a lit candle, she would walk backwards towards the mirror. When she turned around and shone the light in the mirror, the face of her future husband would show up. And if a skeleton face showed up, that meant she would die before she would ever marry. And I think that's where the Bloody Mary urban legend began, because, and I actually think the truth of Bloody Mary, which I think everybody already knows, that you look in a mirror, you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and this woman will show up, and you can ask her a question, and she is bound to answer it. But I think it kind of comes from that legend, and there's actually a real phenomenon that if you, in the darkness, stare at your own reflection in a mirror for a long period of time, your reflection will morph into something else. Your face will contort, it will change. Sometimes people even see animal faces where their face was, and it's a real thing. And I think those things put together kind of were the seed for Bloody Mary. But it's always, it always creeps me out. I like any of the look in a mirror and say something 3 times stories. But I think it all kind of maybe started with those.
Okay. Is there any truth to the old story about somebody waking up in a bathtub having lost a kidney?
That happens. I mean, it's not exactly like that, but I know that in some countries, sometimes it's like day laborers will be offered, oh, you know, if you come here, we have a job for you. And they go, and there are other people waiting, and there's no job. They wake up eventually missing a kidney. And that actually happens. So
really?
I don't know about the waking up in a bathtub thing, even though I've heard that, and it probably has happened at some point. But unfortunately, I mean, stealing organs in some places is big money. And people will do almost any unscrupulous thing for money. And it does happen.
I guess it doesn't surprise me that somebody would try it, but I am surprised that I would be surprised, even on the black market, if there was any success with it. Because...
Yeah, I know.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. In like the 2000s, the late, I think 2008, there was actually a documented organ theft ring in India. And it was one of the cases where they would offer, you know, indigent men who had families to support, you know, come here, I have a job for you. And it would be, usually they would offer them construction work. And they would end up stealing an organ, normally a kidney. and selling it. The guy would wake up, and he'd be in pain, and he'd know something happened, and it would just be like, here's a few dollars, go. And it happened. And I know a place was raided in that case, and they raided a house. It was completely equipped with surgical equipment. I mean, it was like a little mini hospital where they were harvesting organs and getting rich doing it. And so they were actually caught. It was a real thing, and I'm sure it happened. That was just one instance where they were actually caught.
I'm sure
it happens all the time.
Have you found any instances of that in the United States or in Canada?
I've never seen anything about it that was documented, but I would be really surprised if it hasn't happened on some level. Because, again, anywhere where there's money to be made and where people can prey on people who are desperate, it would not surprise me to find out that this happens. And I think sometimes some people may even be willing to sell their kidney or whatever if they're desperate enough, and they're not going to go to the police. And I don't know. It's a scary thought, but I would not be surprised.
I guess there's a difference between selling your kidney and having somebody harvest it from you unwillingly. It seems to me that harvesting it unwillingly, they would need to know your blood type. There would be so many factors that would make just picking some random person and taking their kidney, it would almost make it pointless.
Yeah, I think probably in more developed countries, unless it was a willing procedure, I don't know that it could be successful. But I don't know. I think in other areas, I don't know if all protocol is followed, and I think it could easily happen. I don't know. I mean, I've heard the stories where a guy meets a girl in a bar, and they go home, and the next thing he knows, he wakes up, or she wakes up one way or the other, and one of them is missing an organ, and the person's gone. And I don't know if that happens. I don't think so. But I think people can be manipulated and go for one thing and it turn into something else, like the guys who think they're getting a construction job, and the next thing they know, they're missing an organ.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think maybe it's more likely in the third world countries or through sales. I just have a hard time believing that people will just wake up having had an organ stolen from them. But then again, that's what makes these urban legends fascinating, is that sometimes the unthinkable does happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, with that, Cindy, we're going to step out and take a quick break. When we come back, can we delve into a few more mysteries?
Sure.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Sundays.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Are you looking to keep up with Spaced Out Radio? What better way to do so than to go shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store? It's a great place to get exciting swag that will make you look good. We have t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and so much more for you to dress yourself up with. All you have to do is go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the store, and get what you want. It's that simple. So come shop at our store, where we can own the night together.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother is watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you looking to keep up with Spaced Out Radio? What better way to do so than to go shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store? It's a great place to get exciting swag that will make you look good. We have t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and so much more for you to dress yourself up with. All you have to do is go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the store, and get what you want. It's that simple. So come shop at our store, where we can own the night together.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with me, Little Richie G, as I take over the airwaves on Spaced Out Saturdays. This is Rich Giordano, and I'm going to bring you the most fun on the radio you can have with your clothes on. We're going to get to the heart of the subjects from UFOs to what's going on in the paranormal and everything in between. So come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern for the fastest 3 hours of your week.
My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am. My hands can feel good. I'm free. I'm remembering who I am.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sunday. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thank you so much for sticking with us. We welcome everyone back listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us that favor and hit the subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store, and reading up on the SOR Newswire, where you can find Dave's weekly blog and so much more. We're talking with Cindy Parmiter about urban legends and some different things, and we're just taking kind of a spooky little trip down the road to get us into that holiday and Halloween kind of spirit. Cindy, thanks for sticking around with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, one of the things that you've written about is the idea of sleep terrors and night paralysis. What did you learn writing about that? And have you ever experienced any of it?
I think that I did not the traditional sleep paralysis, but there are like different, I didn't realize this till I started writing about it, but even like the light show that I saw when I was a little girl at my grandma's house and then later on at our house can be a sign of sleep paralysis. And I didn't know that. And there's also exploding head syndrome that's part of it, where you just have this enormous bang inside your head, and usually as you're falling asleep, and it will wake you up. And that's part of sleep paralysis, and I've had that. But I haven't had a lot of people who have sleep paralysis say that they get a pressure on their chest. They feel like someone's pushing on their chest or sitting on their chest. And some people claim to actually see, usually a woman, and she's normally called the old hag or the night witch, who sits on their chest and literally seems to be trying to push the air out of them. I've never seen anything like that. I also had some people submit stories to me where they would see her just sitting in their room or standing close to their room and sometimes trying to suck their breath away or whispering in their ear. And it's called sleep paralysis because they can't move. They're completely helpless. They just have to lay there while all this is going on around them, and there's nothing they can do. Normally, they can't speak, and it's just something that they have to wait for it to pass. And it's terrifying when it happens. Everything I've heard, all the stories that I've written about, I mean, the people, when it's happening, they're in the waking nightmare. They know they're awake, but they are powerless when this woman's there. And then I had one of my, what I thought was the scariest story. The guy was in Ohio, and his started when he was a teenager. And I did find that a lot of these sleep paralysis stories are men, and their experiences begin when they're like right after puberty, when they're in their mid-teens. They start to experience sleep paralysis, which they don't know what it is at the time. But for him, it wasn't a woman. He woke up one night, couldn't move, but this thing in his room, he said it was bigger than a man, but it had horns like a ram that were curled. And he said it looked like how he imagined the devil looked in his room. And it would come night after night and stomp around his room. Sometimes it would curse at him. It just terrorized him. And at one point even grabbed his feet and jerked him off the bed, which in sleep paralysis shouldn't happen. But he actually was in the floor when his parents found him, so it wasn't his imagination. And his parents would say, he didn't think he could make any noises, but they would say, we heard you screaming, but we couldn't get in your door. The door wouldn't give, and then when they would come in, he would be on the floor or whatever, and he sought medical help, and he saw a psychiatrist, and he was kind of taught methods to make this go away, to talk himself out of what he was seeing, that this wasn't happening, to calm himself down, to de-stress, and it worked for him eventually. And he stopped having these visitations. But while it was going on, he said this was so real. It wasn't a nightmare. He wasn't asleep. This thing was there. He could smell it. He could see it. He could describe it perfectly. It was very real to him.
Now, is this kind of moving into the area of night terrors then?
For him, definitely, because it was sleep paralysis in that he couldn't voluntarily move, but it was also so terrifying, and it was like being in a nightmare. And I mean, he described it. He was going through a lot of stress in his life. He had changed schools and had a lot going on, so his parents kind of attributed some of his night terrors to that. But this figure that terrorized him was just so scary. And people described the witch as being really scary, but I don't remember him saying that it tried to smother him. It just was more something that just verbally attacked him and almost tried to just take him out of the room. But once he kind of worked through it, he was able to sort of make it go away on his own, but it took years for this to happen. So in all that time, he had so much to contend with before it finally stopped. And some of the other sleep paralysis stories that I wrote about were the same way, either through medication or through talking themselves out of it, telling themselves, this isn't happening, you think you're awake, but you're asleep, just don't worry about it, let it go, and eventually they get to a point where they can talk themselves through it.
Now,
but while it's happening, it's very real.
Do you think that in some of these, or maybe all of these cases let's talk about the night terrors for a little bit here. Do you think that this is something that is internal and that they're creating, or do you think it could be something external that's attacking them, or could it be both?
See, for me, I think that it's both, because I hate to paint everything with a broad brush. It's like, yes, I think sleep paralysis is a real thing, but I also wonder some of the stories kind of are outside of everything I've read about sleep paralysis, and that makes me wonder if something else is going on. Some people describe sort of almost a traditional, what we think of a visitor from outer space would look like in their room. That doesn't seem like sleep paralysis to me. People say, it prodded at me, it poked at me. I felt like I was out of my room for a while and then back in my room. That's strange to me, and that doesn't seem like sleep paralysis. So I wonder sometimes if some of the stories, if there's something more to it than just going on inside someone's head.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the idea that some sleep paralysis is attributable to the idea of alien abductions. And what's your thought about that?
I absolutely think so. I think sometimes, people want to believe it's one thing. Sleep paralysis, it's acceptable. people have it. Almost everyone apparently has had it at one time or another, and some people just don't realize it. It's not acceptable to say aliens were in my room and I think they abducted me and then brought me back. So if you say, I think it was sleep paralysis, it's like, oh, well, okay, that can happen. But no one's going to believe you if you say aliens abducted me. But I think that it happens. I wish I had, because we have Indrid Cold is a very popular story in this area. And this is a being that was supposedly from outer space. And even this very practical community completely believes that that's what happened. So I don't doubt that we have visitors from the outer reaches of the universe. I really believe we do have visitors, and I do believe that we're a curiosity for them. So I'm not surprised if someone says, I think I was abducted, and they did stuff to me, they experimented, and they brought me back. I think it could happen.
If they're abducting people, I think the idea of paralyzing them or immobilizing them in some form makes total sense from a practical standpoint and from just a general standpoint.
Mm-hmm, exactly, because it makes their job very easy. And, I think it plays into the sleep paralysis thing very easily. I can totally see that happening. I think that sleep paralysis is very real, but I also think that alien abduction, that's a real thing too. I think it's rare, but I think it happens, and I think sleep paralysis is a great cover for that.
Now, how is a night terror different from a nightmare?
A night terror, there's a syndrome, and it's almost exclusively among Asian men. It's this strange thing where they claim that while they're asleep, this, always a woman, comes to claim their soul. And there have been so many cases, hundreds of cases, in widespread through Asia, where perfectly healthy young men die in their sleep from terror. Nothing physically wrong with them, but they will tell people, this thing. And A Nightmare on Elm Street was based on one of these stories, as a matter of fact. And Wes Craven wrote about it. It's a real thing. They actually are scared to death, literally. But they'll say ahead of time, she's coming for me. I know it. And some men will go to extremes. They'll dress in a woman's nightgown. They'll dress as women at night, hoping to fool this thing that they think is coming for them. So whether they scare themselves to death just from stress, or if it's a real thing, it's hard to say, but it's so widespread that it just seems odd to me that so many healthy young men would scare themselves to death. Those are night terrors, and I've read of people who've been so scared they survived, but they wake up 25-year-olds with completely gray hair because they were that frightened in their sleep. The boy I believe it was in California, that Wes Craven was inspired by, he was a teenager, and he told his parents, something is coming for me when I sleep. And he would stay up all night. He would drink coffee constantly. He would do anything not to sleep. And this went on for as long as he possibly could. And when he finally fell asleep, his parents found him dead the next morning, scared to death. It's a real thing. And not everyone who has a night terror is going to die from it. A night terror, for most people, is just an extreme nightmare. But this goes one step beyond that, where the dreams or whatever happens to them while they sleep is so terrifying they can't come out of it.
When did it begin to cross cultural lines then? If it was primarily an Asian thing, has it always been everywhere, or is it kind of based in certain cultures? I know that the Native Americans have some is it more predominant in certain cultures, or is it kind of spread out evenly now?
I think it's more predominant in certain cultures. The boy in California was actually Asian. And I think with Native Americans, I don't want to generalize, but from what I've read, and I have actually done a few stories that were based in the Native American community, they're more open and more spiritual. They're not as skeptical as a lot of other cultures tend to be. They're very accepting that there are spirits all around, and you accept them or you don't, but they're there nonetheless. So I think that sometimes being more open to something leaves you vulnerable. And I think it's the same for this phenomenon with certain aspects of the Asian community. They're not skeptical about it. This is something widely talked about, and they believe in it. And sometimes what you believe in can be pretty harmful.
I understand that. Now, the cultures that have more instances or are based a little bit more with the night terrors, do they have a higher percentage maybe or more people having prophetic dreams? And can you explain what one of those is a little bit? Because it is different entirely from a night terror.
Right. I don't know culturally how that works, but prophetic dreams, which I very much believe in, there have been documented cases of people who have dreamed things that come to pass, and they had no way of knowing. So, yeah, I mean, I had something that I call it a prophetic dream. I don't know if it was, but I used to work for this lady, an elderly lady, and I would go to her house every other week. She always had the door unlocked for me, and I would go in, and I just kind of stayed for a couple of hours. I did a little light housework and just kept her company, and she was super sweet. And I never dreamed about her. I wasn't close to her. We were friendly, and that was it. But then I had this dream about her one night, and I walked in her house like I always did, and she didn't greet me. And I went upstairs, and she's sitting in a chair, and her skin is a strange color, and her eyes are just unfocused but staring straight ahead. She pays me no mind, and it's her, but it's not her. It's just her body, and she wasn't there. And it creeped me out so much. I woke up just a horrible feeling, but it was just a bad dream. But the next time I went to her house, the door was locked, which never had happened. I knocked, nothing. She hadn't called me and said, "Don't come." Her neighbor happened to see me out there, and he yelled over, "Are you looking for Ada?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "She passed away." And it floored me, because it was like that her sitting in the chair wasn't her. I had never dreamed about her before. And I took it as the closest I've come, I think, to a prophetic dream. I think that either she was dead at that time or she was going to die, because I'd seen her 2 weeks earlier. And I had no idea anything was wrong with her. Didn't know she was sick. And that, to me, is a prophetic dream when, I don't know if it was her way of telling me, "I'm not going to be around anymore, you're not going to see me anymore." But just the way she looked, she just wasn't herself, and she seemed almost confused, but just not herself. And it was a really creepy, awful dream.
Now, how do prophetic dreams tie in with psychic abilities? Is there a connection? Can people with no necessarily psychic abilities have a random prophetic dream, or is there a connection?
I don't really think that there's much of a connection. I think people who are psychic all the time. And I think prophetic dreams are kind of more for people like me. I'm not psychic at all. and just had this one weird experience, and then it kind of came to pass. And I've had so many stories like that. And I had one lady give me her story, which I loved, actually. She dreamed she had been trying to get pregnant, and it wasn't successful. And she dreamed that she was in a supermarket, and a lady came up to her and put her hand on her tummy and said, "Oh, you're going to have a little girl." And she was, "No, I'm not pregnant." "Oh, you're pregnant. You're going to have a little girl." And, the woman woke up, and the dream was really sweet, but she wasn't pregnant. And it turned out that she was pregnant. And when she went for her ultrasound, she had gone for several ultrasounds, but for one of them, the technician was the lady she had seen in her dream. She recognized her right away. She had these big blue eyes, and she knew it was her. But the lady didn't recognize her. But the pregnant woman was like, "I knew her. She was the woman from my dream." And when she did the ultrasound, she said, "You're having a little girl." And she said exactly what she had said in the dream. And the lady who was pregnant, she wasn't psychic. She had never had a prophetic dream. But somehow she had dreamt this woman she had never met before. And the woman had told her in her dream the same thing she would end up telling her in person months later. And I think it's very random.
You bring up an interesting point. When a lot of people think prophetic dreams, they think negative, and maybe that they dream something bad is going to happen. How many of these dreams are kind of positive, where they, maybe materialize something that they've really wanted, or something along those lines?
I'm sure that probably happens a lot. Unfortunately, the stories that I've heard, the one I just told was really the only positive one that I can remember. They're almost always, unfortunately, negative. Usually dreams of someone passing or some kind of tragedy. I know that people dreamt of 9/11 before it happened and told other people, but no one pays attention to that sort of thing until it happens. And then it's like, wow, I dreamed that. I knew that was going to happen. It's usually a big tragedy. And normally more than one person, people all around the world will have very similar dreams of something that ends up happening. And I don't understand how that happens. I don't know where that comes from. These people aren't psychic. This might be the only time it ever happens to them. I don't know where it comes from. But I do believe people dream things that are going to happen.
I think you're right. With 9/11, that was probably the most famous instance where, granted, it was after the fact, but many, many people came out and said that they had some sort of dream or vision kind of pointing in the direction of something bad happening.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it seemed like they came out after the fact. Maybe nobody was listening before it, but it does seem to potentially offer up some validation to the idea of some form of mass kind of consciousness dreaming.
Yeah, I'm really prone to believe when people say, I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know. Of course, when it happens, if you go tell someone, "Oh, you're not going to believe this. I saw planes crash into the Twin Towers." "Oh, yeah, well, okay, great." No one's going to pay attention to that. So then when it does happen and you say, "I dreamed that," it's like, there's nothing to gain by saying that you dreamed it.
Right.
But I can see where people don't say things before it happens because, and you talk yourself out of stuff.
Right, Cindy, we're going to step out for our final break, and we're going to pick up this discussion right where we left off. You are listening to Spaced Out Sundays.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens, or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Sundays. I'm your host, Everett Thiemer, and thanks for sticking around with us. Don't forget, if you've missed part of the show, you can check out our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do us the favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store, reading up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. We're going to finish up the show here with Cindy, and she's been talking quite a bit about true tales of the unknown and the unusual and the weird. And there's one that I really want her to tell before the show ends, and that is the story of Skinned Tom. Cindy, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I love this story. It's one that it's also part urban legend, but it also has some truth. And it's just a really spooky tale, and I think it's a really good one for Halloween. But it took place in Tennessee, and this guy, Tom, was like the town Casanova. Hollywood good looks. Every girl wanted to date him. He was an athlete, and pretty much every girl in town did date him. But he was a love 'em and leave 'em guy. He just went from one girl to the next to the next. And small town Tennessee, he ended up branching out to other towns, and he would just go through all the girls and just keep going. And in one town, he met a girl, Eleanor, and fell for her head over heels. She was perfect for him. He totally fell in love with her. Eleanor was already married. Tom knew that, but he loved Eleanor, and they just started an affair. Eleanor's husband worked nights, so it was perfect for them. So Tom and Eleanor would go to Lover's Lane or any sort of make-out spot, and they would spend hours there together, and then Tom would have Eleanor back home before her husband got home. Unfortunately, other people saw them there, and they knew that Eleanor was married, and word got back to her husband what was going on. So one night he pretended to go to work, and he hid. He parked where they couldn't see him. He waited. Tom came down the road, stopped, picked up Eleanor. The husband followed them to a Lover's Lane. Tom and Eleanor parked. The husband stayed a little to the distance and just kind of watched what was going on. And when he'd seen enough, he got out of his car, went to their car, opened the door. Tom didn't know what was going on, so he just sat there quietly. Eleanor started pleading with her husband, it's not what it looks like. I can explain everything. The husband knew exactly what was going on, so he wasn't hearing it. He turned his attention to Tom. Tom swore up and down, I didn't know she was married. I had no idea. The husband listened to Tom rant and rave for a while. He had a knife in his hand, the husband, so Eleanor knew there was going to be big trouble. The husband grabbed Tom, dragged him out of the car, and towards the woods. Eleanor stayed in the car. She huddled down in the back seat. She could hear Tom screaming, pleading for his life. and then didn't hear anything, and then more screaming. In a little while, her husband came back, no Tom. He had blood all over his clothes, still holding a bloody knife, and Eleanor thought, I'm next. But he didn't do anything, didn't say anything, walked past her, went to his own car, and drove off. She spent the night in the Lover's Lane in the car. Didn't know what happened to Tom, but knew it was bad. Her husband, she didn't know at the time, had driven to the sheriff's office. He turned himself in. He had gotten rid of the knife somewhere, presumably in the Lover's Lane. But he made no secret. He told them exactly what happened. He said that he had taken Tom into the woods and skinned him, left him alive, and he was turning himself in. So it was still night. So the next morning, sheriff, deputy, they went out to the Lover's Lane. They found Tom's car with Eleanor still in it. She pretty much corroborated her husband's story up to a point. She said, that Tom had been there. Her husband had dragged him off into the woods. She didn't know what happened. They went into the woods. They found Tom's skin hanging from the trees, and they found Tom face down in the dirt. His hands were clutching grass, and he was dead by this time, completely skinned. So the husband ended up standing trial. Of course, he was convicted and died in prison. Eleanor went on with her life for what it was, but she was pretty much broken after that. She felt guilty for what happened to her husband, guilty for what happened to Tom. As far as Tom went, Lover's Lane in Tennessee and across the border in Kentucky started to be frequented by this man who people said was red, who would approach their vehicles, look in the windows, scare them away. One guy in Kentucky was there with his girlfriend, and he had to get out of the car to go relieve himself. And while he was doing that, he said that this thing appeared, and totally red, and it looked kind of like a man, but not a man, and just stood and watched him. And the guy didn't know what was going to happen. Is this guy going to attack me? What is this thing? When he got his moment, he ran back to the car, and he was sure that this thing was chasing him. He jumped in, got out of there, didn't even tell his girlfriend until they were out of the Lover's Lane what had happened. They never went back to the Lover's Lane, and it turned out that everyone who claimed that they saw this thing, some people said it was a skeleton, some people said it was just a bloody man, they wouldn't go to Lover's Lane anymore. And so the theory was that it was Tom, and that he was haunting Lover's Lane to ward people off because of what had happened to him there. Then the other theory was that he was looking for the perfect skin to replace the skin that had been taken from him. And that's why people like the boy in the woods who had confronted this creature said that the thing was just sizing him up. So there was that thought that, he's just out there until he finds the perfect skin. So either he's a good guy who's just trying to get people away from the Lover's Lane where he lost his life, or he's a sinister character who's just looking for a new bodysuit.
That is wild. Talking about Lover's Lane and cars, in your book Tales Too Strange to Be Fiction, you have a story of an antique car that sounds a bit like a movie. Can you tell us about that?
That was my father-in-law's story, and I can guarantee you he is not familiar with Christine in any way, shape, or form. But he gave me this story, which I loved. He had 1963, I believe, Ford Falcon. he liked to restore old cars at that time. And I think this was in the early 90s. And he bought this car. He was the third owner. It had originally been owned by an elderly lady. And when she passed away, an elderly man had owned it. And when he passed away, my father-in-law bought the car at an auction. And it was a great car. It was in perfect running order. He didn't have to do anything to it. So he loved this car. It had little quirks. It only would receive AM radio, and every radio station would only play big band music. And he lived in Florida at the time, and he traveled from Florida back and forth to Ohio pretty often. And he said no matter what state he was in, he got the same AM stations with the same big band music, no matter what. So after a while, he got tired of it. He installed a stereo system, AM/FM cassette. And he said the cassette player worked fine, but he could still only get AM radio and still only get big band music. In 2004, a hurricane destroyed much of Florida, including a lot of my father-in-law's property. The car was wrecked by the hurricane. So he sold it to a guy who restored antique cars. And it was all done. My father-in-law forgot all about the car. Months later, this guy showed up at my father-in-law's house and wanted to know if he would buy the car back. And my father-in-law was like, why? And the guy said, I keep all my cars that I'm working on in this sort of storage area. And it's gated. And he said, I went there, opened the gate to go work on some cars, and that car, which was not in running order, shifted into gear and ran him over. He spent weeks in the hospital. He spent more weeks recovering, and he did not want any part of that car. And my father-in-law did buy the car back with the intention of restoring it, and never got around to it and ended up reselling it again. So somewhere out there is that car. But the guy never could explain how this.
It's out there to this day?
As far as anyone knows, somebody bought it, and presumably to restore it. So I don't know whatever became of it. But, yeah, that was a strange story. To know my father-in-law would be, he's the most straight-laced, stiff upper lip, staunch guy you're ever going to meet. He would never tell any kind of story, anything like this, if it wasn't the gospel. So it freaked me out.
When you say that,
got a car that didn't run.
When you say that it would only play big band music on the radio, was it a radio station that could be located through the town or call ID numbers, or was it just music playing through it?
He didn't say, so I can't answer that, but I know that he said no matter where he was, no matter what state he was in, he could only tune in AM, and every station played big band music. So that's curious to me. I don't know if there were any specific stations or if it was just the AM dial just constantly playing big band music. But, yeah, it was a pretty freaky story.
It sounds a lot like the movie, I believe, The Car with Dennis Weaver. Are you familiar with that? It wasn't Christine. It was a different one.
I don't know that one.
Well, if it's still out there, that's fascinating. I would love to find that car. It sounds, well, it has some parallels to the movie. Do you think, with the 5 or so minutes that we have here, you could talk a little bit about animal communication in a weird twist? Our weekday host, Dave Scott, myself, and our Saturday host, Rich Giordano, all had pets die within a short period of time of each other, and I think everybody's missing them a little bit. What can you say about animal communication?
I've had so many stories. People bring me so many stories about their pets who have visited them, and we've had it happen as well. I think they stay close for a little while after they pass. I've always heard, and I kind of believe it, that pets, they move on faster than people do because they're not as attached to this life. They don't stop and think about everything so much. So they're here for a little bit, and then they move on. We've had experiences with all of our animals that once they pass on, we would hear them, dog's toenails in the hallway, or I would find cat toys that, I hadn't seen for years from a cat that I haven't had for ages that just pop up all of a sudden. And it's just weird little messages sometimes I think they try to send that, I'm okay, so you be okay. But I've had other people that have, heard their dog drinking out of the toilet because that was the dog's habit. And long after their dog's dead, they still hear that. I think some animals stay close to us. I think most move on. But I think for a very short time that they're all around us for a little while.
What are some of the strangest stories you've heard about maybe a sign that a dog has left or a cat has left that they're still there for a little bit?
That's really tough. I don't know. I mean, I had one guy gave me his story of his dog that, he would find his dog would always bring him tennis balls, and he would start finding tennis balls, like laying on his bed, laying in the floor. His dog liked to follow him in the bathroom. So, the door would open just a little bit, like the dog walked in. I think sometimes they leave us little gifts. I think they know what we expect of them. So if your cat liked to sleep with you, you might feel your cat jump up on the bed. You might hear purring. You might hear your dog bark even though your dog's not there. You might feel a paw on your leg. I mean, I think that they do whatever they can to let you know that they're still there. I have some, I know we don't have much time, but I have animal stories. One, I'll give the really short version. When I was a realtor, there was a story about a lady who was looking for a house, and she loved the house. She looked around. The realtor was on the phone downstairs, said, go look upstairs. The lady showed herself around the upstairs, and there was a white cat up there that was very friendly. She visited it for a little bit, and then the cat got very vicious with her, and the lady became physically sick. She went downstairs and told the realtor about the cat. There wasn't supposed to be a cat there. They couldn't find it. But even though she had wanted the house, something about the cat changed her mind, and she didn't buy the house. And the couple who did buy the house were killed in a home invasion upstairs not long after purchasing the house. So we got the story as realtors of, it was the cat's way of warding her off. Why it didn't do the same for the couple who did get the house, I don't know. But the lady who told the story was like, that cat saved my life. So animal spirits are fascinating to me.
Would it be surprising if somebody's animal had passed and maybe they were sitting and something seemed to materialize or land on their lap that almost seemed like urine? Would that be something that would be surprising, or would that be sort of maybe a commonplace or semi-commonplace experience?
I haven't heard of that, but I can see that happening. I think that animal spirits are just like human spirits. If they want to show you that they're there, they'll do something they know you're going to recognize. So I could totally see that happening. They know us very, very well, and I think they would do something if that's something that they think would get your attention, I can see them doing that.
I think that that's probably one of the most fascinating terms or aspects of the paranormal phenomena, is because we are so connected to our pets. I mean, some of us, that's our best friend, and to have them come back, maybe in a way, that's a little bit more proof than seeing a ghost of a person, because the experiences are sometimes almost undeniable with what people experience with a pet loss.
Oh yeah, and they're pure souls. They don't have any regrets in their lives. So when your pet gives you any sign that they're around, it's completely for your well-being, because they know you feel bad and they want to still be there, but they can't. And I think we probably miss a lot of the signs, but I think our pets almost always give us some sign that it's okay, because I think they feel bad that they know we feel bad.
I think you're probably right. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So, Cindy, can you tell us where we can find your works and give us some of the titles that you have, and tell us where we can find you coming up?
My books are available online on Amazon, and my most popular book is True Stories of the Paranormal, the collection, which is over 300 pages of true paranormal stories. And I'll tell you for the first time, because I haven't told anyone this, but on Halloween it will be available free on ebook on Kindle. So you might want to look for that, because you can get it free on Halloween.
Oh, that's excellent. I want to say thank you very much for joining us. You've had a lot of interesting and fun information. It's been a great 3 hours.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
We've got Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. A special thank you to everyone listening at home, in your cars, at work, in our chat rooms, and wherever you may be. Remember, this show is copywritten by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.